O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oete, Dene, Sulene, and Neothog nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Pursuant to Rule 78.4, this is the list of ministers to be called for questioning in the debate on concurrence motion in the Committee of Supply for November 5th, 2024 and November 6th, 2024. And I table that.
The Honourable Official Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Could you please canvass the House to see if there is leave to expedite consideration of Bill 41, the Provincial Court Amendment Act, and Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, on November 5th, 2024 as follows. At the top of orders of the day, the House will consider second reading of Bill 41 with the following limited debate provisions to apply. First, the Minister of Justice may speak for up to 5 minutes. Then a question period may be held in accordance with Sub-Rule 137(5). Next, a member from the official opposition may speak for up to 5 minutes. Lastly, each independent member may speak for up to 5 minutes, and the Speaker shall then put the question. Once Bill 41 passes second reading, Bill 41 and 221 shall be immediately referred to the Committee of the Whole. Once the Committee of the Whole rises and the chairperson reports, the House will consider concurrence and third reading of Bill 41 and 221. The following limited debate provisions will apply to Bill 41. First, the bill sponsor may speak for up to 5 minutes. Next, a member of the official opposition may speak for up to 5 minutes. Lastly, each independent member may speak for up to 5 minutes, and the Speaker shall then put the question. The following limited debate provisions will apply to Bill 221. First, the bill sponsor may speak for up to 5 minutes. Next, a member of government may speak for up to 5 minutes. Lastly, each independent member may speak for up to 5 minutes, and the Speaker shall then put the question. The House will not see the clock until all the House business outlined in this request has been completed. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Is there leave for the House to consider Bills 41 and Bill 221 as described by the member? Leave has been denied. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. Could you please canvass the House to see if there's leave to expedite consideration of Bill 41, the Provincial Court Amendment Act, as follows. 1. At the top of the orders of the day today, the House will consider second reading of Bill 41 with the section of the Committee of Supply meeting in room 254 considering departmental estimates to sit concurrently in the House. The following limited debate provisions will apply to the Bill 41 debate. A. First, the Minister of Justice may speak up to 5 minutes. B. Then a question period may be held in accordance with Sub-Rule 137(5). C, next, a member of the official opposition may speak up to 5 minutes. D, lastly, each independent member may speak up to 5 minutes. And E, the speaker shall then put the question. 2, once Bill 41 passes second reading, it shall then be referred to the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development, which will meet in room 255. The House shall then resolve into the Chambers section of the Committee of Supply to consider departmental estimates. On November 7th, 2024, the House will consider concurrence and third reading of Bill 41 during orders of the day, government business, with the following limited debate provisions to apply. A, first, the Minister of Justice may speak up to 5 minutes. B, next, a member of the official opposition may speak up to 5 minutes. C, lastly, each independent member may speak up to 5 minutes. And D, the speaker shall then put the question.
Is there leave for the House to consider Bill 41 as described by the official government House Leader? Leave has been denied. Routine proceedings. Before we get into that, I have a couple of guests I want to introduce. First, I'd like to draw attention to all honorable members to the Speaker's Gallery, where we have with us today Mr. John Holman, who is the Chief Clerk of the Illinois House of Representatives. John is the guest of our clerk, Rick Yerish, and while in Winnipeg on a personal visit, he was eager to see how the Manitoba Legislature operates. With another clerk in the chamber today, I'm hoping that members will put their best foot forward this afternoon, as I'm sure we'd all like to make a good impression on our American guest. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today, and the guest is sitting in the Speaker's Gallery. Further, I would like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Atun Patel, Kiran Parmar, Yash Desi, Raj Pandit, Nisarg Patel, Naturi Patel, Apexa Parmar, and Megha Bhatt, who are the guests of the honorable member for Brandon West. And on behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. Now, routine procedures, introduction of bills. The Honorable Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister of Families, that Bill number 42, Planning Amendment Act, be now read the first time.
Been moved by the Honourable Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations, seconded by the Honourable Minister of Families, that Bill number 42, the Planning Amendment Act, be now read a first time. The Honourable Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I am pleased to introduce Bill number 42, the Planning Amendment Act, to reaffirm our government's commitment to listen to local leadership and respect the autonomy of local governments. This bill gives the existing member municipalities of the Capital Planning Region the choice to participate in the next Capital Region Plan. Amendments proposed in the bill will recognize the importance of local voices, those of elected municipal officials, to chart the path in planning for the Capital Region. I am pleased to present this bill to the House for its consideration. Thank you.
Further introduction of bills, the Honourable Member for is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed and so ordered. Further introduction of bills, the Honourable Member for Waverley.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move, seconded by the member for the PA, Kami Siak, that Bill number 223, the Indigenous Veterans Day Act, Commemoration of Days, Weeks, and Months Act amended, Loi sur la Journée des Anciens Combattants Autochtones, modification de la Loi sur les journées, les semaines et les mois commémoratifs, be now read a first time.
Been moved moved by the Honourable Member for Waverley, seconded by the Honourable Member for the Paul-Camissac, that Bill number 223, the Indigenous Veterans Day Act, Commemoration of Days, Weeks and Months Act amended, be now read for a first time. The Honourable Member for Waverley.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Bill 223, the Indigenous Veterans Day Act, seeks to officially recognize Indigenous Veterans Day on November 8th, building on the 1994 resolution and enshrining it in law. It honors the remarkable contributions and sacrifices of Indigenous veterans and active service members who embody the principles of freedom, unity, and service before self. By making this day a statutory commemoration, we create space for reflection, respect, and education around the unique challenges faced by Indigenous military members. I look forward to its unanimous support and passage, ensuring these heroes are honored and remembered for generations to come. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed, and so ordered. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Minister of Families.
Which, in accordance with Rule 78(9), I am tabling a revised sequence for the consideration of departmental estimates for today only.
Ministerial statements. The Honourable First Minister.
Murray Sinclair was a great Canadian, great Manitoban, and a great Anishinaabe. His career stands as a legacy of public service and a deep commitment to truth, fairness, and to justice for all people who live on these lands. He was the first Indigenous person named to the provincial court and the Court of Queen's Bench here in Manitoba. He was the first. He will also be remembered as one of the best. He was appointed co-commissioner of the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, which laid bare systemic racism in the institutions of justice and is considered a foundational perspective on the system's relationship with Indigenous people. He also led the Pediatric Cardiac Surgery Inquest, an important study which helped to improve heart care as it is delivered to the most vulnerable young Manitobans in our province. The penultimate moment of his career, however, came as he led the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. Here we see Mr. Sinclair's brilliance embodied in the fact that he took a process which could have been very divisive and could have split Canadians apart, and instead he used it as a tool to forge calls to action, to bring all of us together for the future of this great country, and to ask us to live up to that phrase that we have been taught by residential school survivors, that every child matters. It will be a long time before our nation produces another person the caliber of Murray Sinclair. He showed us that there is no reconciliation without truth. We should hold dear in our hearts his words that our nation is on the cusp of a great new era, and that we must all, quote, dare to live greatly together. End quote. Murray Sinclair was the living embodiment of reconciliation in this country. And today, now that he has begun his journey to the spirit world, each of us as Canadians is forced to contemplate how we will continue on this important work now that he has left us. Once a forest loses one of its giant cedars, it's important for the rest of the trees to ensure that the next generation can grow strong. I send all my love to his kids and to his grandkids as Murray is now reuniting with his late wife, Catherine. On a personal level, Mr. Sinclair has been there my entire life. I also want to remind Manitobans of what we witnessed just over a year ago. Mr. Sinclair presided over our government's swearing-in ceremony. He administered our oaths of office. And on that day, he told us something that is remarkable in its wisdom, but also its simplicity. He said, and I quote verbatim, "You have to learn to love the people even when they do not love you." End quote. You have to learn to love the people even when they do not love you. Murray's heart is present in these words: to love one another unconditionally, whether we are Indigenous or non-Indigenous, survivor or supporter, family or merely family we haven't yet met. He asked us to love one another, no matter what. This is the legacy that Murray Sinclair is leaving to us as Canadians. And in return, on behalf of the province of Manitoba, I say, we love you, Murray, always. Kijuene min apache, mazenegi ejik.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, today I rise to honour the life of a Manitoban judge and senator, the Honourable Murray Sinclair. From humble beginnings, being born in 1951 in the Selkirk area on the former St. Peter's Reserve, he demonstrated that with hard work and dedication, any person can go on to make an impact on their community and in their country. By many accounts, he was the type of student that excited teachers. He distinguished himself academically, and his peers named him valedictorian of the Selkirk Collegiate in 1968. Less than a decade later, he would have experienced serving the Attorney General of Manitoba, a fresh law degree from the University of Manitoba, and even a prize recognizing his academic achievement in Introduction to Advocacy. Honourable Speaker, there is a story in his biography about him that details how, early in his career, a judge mistook him for a defendant and asked him to state the charges brought against him. He felt it demonstrated why he was called to practice law, a practice he defended vigorously. On 2 separate occasions, he declined offers to serve as a judge, choosing instead to defend the Manitoba Human Rights Commission, the Manitoba Métis Federation, and the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, amongst others. In 1988, he would eventually accept an offer to serve as a judge, becoming Manitoba's first and Canada's second Indigenous judge. But that milestone is not his achievement. His work continued. In the same year, he was appointed co-commissioner of the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, which produced almost 300 recommendations that continued to impact our justice system today. Justice Sinclair later held a significant role, of course, as Chief Commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission from July 2009 to June 2015, creating a space for more than 6,000 residential school survivors across Canada to tell their stories. Today, as we remember his life achievements will stand out. He exposed injustices and educated Canadians. His work left a lasting impression on Canada and Canadian law. And his life outside of these professional contexts, I have no doubt, left a lasting impression on those closest to him. Every Manitoban can draw inspiration from his hard work, his story, his commitment to his culture and to justice for all Canadians. To his family, thank you for supporting him and his work, and all of you are in our thoughts and prayers on behalf of our PC team. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
May I ask for a moment of silence?
Is there leave for a moment of silence? Leave has been agreed. Member statements. The Honourable Member for Tuxedo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise to recognize the remarkable dedication and community spirit of the Columbus Courts Tenants Association in the Tuxedo constituency. This committed group of residents have tirelessly advocated for the needs and well-being of their neighbors, demonstrating what a united community can achieve. Recently, they took on a project to enhance a special place within their building, their chapel. For many of the residents, this chapel serves as a place of worship, a peaceful refuge, and a cornerstone of their community. However, a recent change in building management created uncertainty about the future of the chapel. Undeterred, the Tenants Association rallied together and found their pews as well as volunteers to help move them into their chapel. Through collaboration, resourcefulness, and volunteer hours, the Columbus Courts Tenants Association has transformed their chapel into a welcoming, comfortable space for all residents to gather, worship, and find solace. They were able to gather for their first church service this past week and provided snacks and coffee for everyone who attended. And I heard that it's actually been the biggest service they've had in recent memory. So the Columbus Courts Tenants Association is an example of positive change that can occur when the community unites for a shared purpose. And I'd like to ask that the names of the members be submitted to Hansard. Thank you.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Honourable Speaker, I would like to welcome my guests in the gallery and take this opportunity to recognize Hindu Heritage Month and celebrate the rich cultural heritage and significant contributions of the Hindu community. This month-long celebration allows us to appreciate the diverse traditions, philosophies, and values that Hinduism brings to our multicultural society. It is time to honor the significant impacts that the Hindu community has had on the social, cultural, and economic fabric of Brandon, as well as recognize their commitment to volunteering with community events such as food and blood drives. By participating in various events and activities, residents can gain a deeper understanding of Hindu customs and practices, fostering a sense of inclusivity and mutual respect. This year, the celebration is particularly special as over the summer, we witnessed the grand opening of the Baps Mandir, the first Hindu temple in Brandon. This newly inaugurated temple serves as a spiritual and cultural hub of the Hindu community, offering a place of worship, community gatherings, and cultural education. It reflects the growing diversity and spirit of inclusion within the city of Brandon. Throughout the month, there will be many celebrations with colorful displays highlighting the community's rich heritage and promoting values of harmony, service, and cultural exchange. These events underscore the importance of diversity and the strength it brings to our community. I have had many wonderful opportunities to attend Hindu events, with the most recent last Friday and Saturday where I joined the Diwali and Hindu New Year celebrations. I am always deeply moved by the warmth and hospitality extended by their community. These experiences have deepened my appreciation for the rich cultural traditions and the spirits of inclusivity that the Hindu community embodies. I'm looking forward to many more celebrations. Honourable Speaker, in the spirit that we celebrate during Hindu Heritage Month, recognize the invaluable contributions that enhance the cultural mosaic of Brandon.
Here, here.
The honourable member for Seine River.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It is my honour to rise today and pay tribute to both the powerful tradition of remembrance and the remarkable individual who ensures that it endures. In 2008, a longtime resident of our Seine River community, Art Bloomfield, made a discovery that would alter how our community in St. Norbert would remember its history and its heroes. While walking his grandson to preschool, Art came across a neglected cenotaph, forgotten and overgrown, dedicated to 13 soldiers who had given their lives in service of our country during World War I. Rather than letting this piece of history fade into obscurity, Art took it upon himself to revive it. He understood that commemorating Remembrance Day is an act that requires action, dedication, and effort. Year after year, Art, his wife Wendy, and committee have tirelessly worked to ensure that the cenotaph remains in our collective memory via the St. Norbert Remembrance Day ceremony. Because of their hard work, the cenotaph remains a symbol of those who sacrificed their lives for our freedoms. Those soldiers who fought and died for our country had connections to the community of St. Norbert. Many were Red River Métis citizens, and as a Red River Métis woman, it is my privilege to attend this ceremony and lay the wreath honoring those Métis soldiers. What started as one man's mission to preserve the legacy of 13 brave soldiers has grown into an annual ceremony of reflection and gratitude. Thanks to his efforts, our community takes a special pause to remember those who gave everything for our country. Art's determination reminds us that one person, one community, can indeed make a profound difference. He not only ensures that the memory of these soldiers will live on, but has inspired future generations to understand the weight of this remembrance. Today, I would like to ask that the names of both Art, his wife Wendy, his committee, and the 13 soldiers be added to Hansard. And I ask my colleagues to please rise and recognize Art, Wendy, and his committee for their hard work.
The honourable member for Portage-La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, I'd like to recognize the Portage and District General Hospital Foundation today. The foundation is a long-standing local charity that is highly regarded by donors, healthcare staff, and citizens of Portage-La Prairie region. The foundation's mission since 1986 has been to strive to enhance, enrich, and maintain a high-level quality of health care, and they have done just that. Over the years, this organization has funded invaluable projects, including a heliport, Gamma Night, renovations to the labor and delivery room and cafeteria, new stretchers, vital sign monitors, bassinets, and the list goes on and on. The foundation also operates 2 bursaries, which promote and support professional development for medical staff in our community. Between the Roberta's Dream Bursary, which started in 2004, and the Dr. Michelle Bales Bursary, which started in 2019, over 50 bursaries have been given away and over $100,000 awarded to local medical staff. The foundation was especially pleased to make a capital contribution of $3 million this year to the new Portage Regional Healthcare Facility currently under construction. It has also made a historical commitment of $5 million towards an MRI scanner in the new facility, thanks to the ongoing and generous contributions of local donors who strongly believe in the importance of accessing health care close to home. I'd like to recognize the Portage District General Hospital's Executive Director, Tara Pettinger, for her outstanding efforts, including organizing another sold-out event. Attending today, along with Tara's longtime board member Jill Verway and Roy Tufford, please join me in thanking the Portage District Foundation for their almost 4 decades of enhancing and enriching health care in our community and beyond. Yeah. Thank you.
The honourable member for Waverley.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today I rise to speak of Remembrance Day and what it means to us as Manitobans. Every day that we live in this great province, a province in which we have the privilege of freedom and peace, is thanks to the brave men and women who serve in our country's military. And it's thanks to their dedication, bravery, and sacrifice that every single one of us is free to live a life where we can provide for our families and pursue opportunities that for many, the world over, are denied. Service members past and present deserve to be recognized for risking life and limb in some of the most dangerous places in the world so that we can live in a free and democratic society. The courage, selflessness, and valor of all Canadian veterans and service members from past and present conflicts should be commemorated and remembered. This past June, it was an absolute honor to be in the presence of veterans who stormed Juno Beach. Having the opportunity to thank them personally for their service was truly inspiring and put real faces and first-hand stories to the Allied effort of preserving peace and freedom. And being present for the 80th anniversary of D-Day was a humbling experience. The privilege that every single one of us in this chamber has, that every Manitoban has, is thanks to those brave soldiers and their sacrifice. So, to every veteran, every active service member, every soldier who made the ultimate sacrifice for peace, freedom, and democracy, thank you. You are and always will be remembered. I would also like the members of this chamber to rise and warmly acknowledge the many active and retired military service members we are graced with having joined us here today. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Oral questions. The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, NDP leaders in Manitoba struggle with the facts when it comes to taxes. Gary Dewar said repeatedly, and I quote, "I'm not elected to raise taxes," end quote. Of course, he said that over 20 years ago before he raised taxes by $90 million. This current NDP Premier has already raised taxes by more than $150 million, and he's not stopping there, Honourable Speaker. And now he is listening to calls for new taxes in Winnipeg. Honourable Speaker, can the Premier please share more with the House about how open he is to increasing taxes on Winnipeggers and fellow Manitobans?
The Honourable First Minister.
What I'd like to share with the people of Manitoba is that the days of having a premier who picks fights with mayors is over. We're working hard with you. We're working hard with the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, with the mayor of Brandon, Steinbach Thompson, to deliver for you, the people of Manitoba. Of course, the member opposite and the ragtag group of leadership contestants apparently want to keep picking fights with other levels of government. They can go ahead and do that, and we'll see how the paltry turnout for their leadership events continues over the course of this run. But before he invokes the name of the great Gary Dewar, I would remind him that we had an event to honor Gary Dewar's 25th anniversary of his election, and it was attended by dozens and dozens and dozens of times more people than ever come out for PC events these days.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, as usual, no answers from you-know-who, the MLA for Fort Rouge. We've established the Premier is not Gary Dewar. He seems different to outdo him by raising taxes nevertheless, Honourable Speaker. His mentor, Greg Selinger, also said he wouldn't raise taxes. He said a PST increase was, and I quote, a ridiculous idea and utter nonsense. He misled Manitobans and got elected and raised the PST anyways. Sure did. It took a progressive conservative government to come in and lower it again and lower the cost of living for all Manitobans. Honourable Speaker, can the Premier please be upfront with Manitobans about their taxes? When is he raising them and by how much, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable First Minister.
On January 1st of this year, our team cut the provincial gas tax to save you money. this is something that nobody on the other side ever did during their 2 failed terms in government. None of the leadership candidates trying to lead the PC ship into the next iceberg saw fit to try and save you money in this way. It was only a Manitoba NDP government that stepped up to save you money each and every time you go to the pump. And guess what? It didn't just help you as you're trying to put food on the table for your loved ones, for your kids. It also helped the whole economy. Inflation came down in this province because of that cut to the provincial gas tax. Now, of course, when it comes to lowering taxes, when it comes to helping the economy, everyone in Manitoba knows where this team stands.
Yeah.
We're on your side. We're on the side of affordability. We're on the side of growing the economy. The only question that Manitobans are still wondering about is, why did the PCs vote against this gas tax?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, Manitobans are seeing time and time again that the only thing that concerns this Premier is photo ops instead of actually taking action for you, Manitobans. The availability of information we know is greater than ever before, Honourable Speaker. Everyone knows it can easily confirm that the NDP record is clear. They get elected with false promises.
Order.
Then they underdeliver and break those promises. Then they overspend and raise taxes. We're watching it unfold again. History is repeating itself. Honourable Speaker, does the Premier have the courage to rise in his place and be transparent with Manitobans? What taxes is this canoe government going to be increasing or allowing to be increased shortly? Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable First Minister.
We cut the provincial gas tax. We saved you money throughout this year. The PCs on the opposite side, they voted against that. They wanted to keep the 14 cents a litre they were charging every single day during their time in office. They charged you every single time you gassed up at the pump during their time in office. Now, of course, what else did they do? Well, they had not just one, but 2 premiers, Brian Pallister and Heather Stephenson, who wanted to pick fights with mayors. Of course, we're taking a different approach. We want to work with other levels of government because we know it's not about us. It's about you, the people of Manitoba. It's about returning decision-making power. It's about returning choice to you, the people of Manitoba. Now, of course, this difference is not only the reason that you invested in us, the ability to serve you, the people of Manitoba. It's also why the Winnipeg Sun says, and I quote, the size of the gathering was modest, end quote, when they're talking about the PC leadership event last week. So we know that we're on the right track. We're going to keep saving you money.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And it seems that once again, the Premier just constantly just dodges questions. And I just wish he would stand up one time and actually answer one of them. The CFIB has a business barometer which measures expectations for business performance. Across Canada, most provinces have experienced only minor shifts. But in Manitoba, business optimism is tanking. And it's at its all-time low under this canoe government. Far below other provinces, far below historical averages, and Honourable Speaker, I table the data. Businesses in Manitoba are not seeing the sort of revenues that they would expect to see around this time of the year, says CFIB Director provincially, Brianna Solberg. Inflation is still squeezing everybody's budgets, she adds. Honourable Speaker, can the Premier just tell Manitobans, is this slumping economy the reason why he has to raise taxes?
The Honourable First Minister.
We cut the gas tax on January 1 of this year. Again, it was 14 cents a litre under the PCs. Under us, it's 0. You're not paying a provincial gas tax. Again, every single question he asks, I will respond exactly right on the money, right on the mark, talking about the very subject he seeks to raise, because you know what? We're delivering for you. That's right. We're helping you and your family. We lowered a tax that was extraordinarily expensive under them. And do you know what else? we're helping to grow the economy. We are delivering on lower inflation, which is something that we ran on. And of course, those who are watching have said, and I'm quoting here, quote, the Canoe government has made it clear it is prepared to do what it takes to encourage economic growth in Manitoba, end quote. So you don't have to take it from us. The economic observers are weighing in and saying that our plan works, but more good news to come.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, short on time and short on answers, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, Starbucks in Fort Rouge. Grocery stores affecting St. Vital and Riel. 7-Elevens across Winnipeg constituencies. Giant Tiger in St. John's. And a $1.6 billion electric vehicle battery plant to Ontario. What do all these things have in common, Honourable Speaker? They are fleeing Manitoba, they're closing their doors, and they're giving up on this NDP economy, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, so I'll ask again, can the Premier please just stop the games, answer the question, and what taxes are the Canoe government going to be increasing or allowing to increase to all Manitobans, Honourable Speaker?
That's a fair question.
The Honourable First Minister.
Another question on the gas tax. Guess what the answer is? We cut the gas tax on January 1 to 0 to save you money. Again, we know that this contributed to inflation coming down in our province, but we can go to the experts. Again, when we listen to TD Economics, again, that's TD, a leading finance firm, they said, bottom line, tax measures are, on balance, expected to generate savings for Manitobans this fiscal year, largely through the extension of the fuel tax. Wow. Now, again, the member opposite might not like to hear it, but the experts are weighing in. The CFIB has added their voice to the chorus, and you, the average Manitoban, are all speaking in unison. Our move to cut the provincial fuel tax is saving you money. It's helping the economy. The only people who are offside are the PC party.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, dead last in Canada. Honourable Speaker, this is the legacy of this Premier, the MLA for Fort Rouge. Unemployment has shot up to 5.7. The cost of fresh meat and veggies are up by 8%, and the economic horse is galloping off to Ontario, Honourable Speaker. Employers and their families across the province can't keep up with the rising costs, and they're losing hope in this government's economic plan, if they even had a plan, Honourable Speaker. So Manitobans are asking, this Premier again, and I'm asking, please answer one question, Honourable Speaker. Will the Premier just please stand up and answer? Which taxes is he increasing or allowing to be increased on Manitobans? Answer the question.
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, if the member from Lac du Bonnet wants to know which tax I want to talk about, obviously it's the provincial gas tax, because we cut that to 0 on January 1 of this year. And I take it sincerely when he stands in his place and he says, please, please, please tell us more about the cut to the provincial fuel tax. Yeah. So we'll tell him more about the cut to the provincial fuel tax. Not only does it help you, not only does it mean that the average person can take their kids to grab, a fun meal at McDonald's or something after saving money at the pump, it also means that our economy saw inflation decline from record highs under the failed days of Heather Stephenson to a new normal, which again, we recognize that there is more work to do, but there is a very important phenomenon now going on where Manitobans perhaps feel as though they're able to catch up a little bit. But here's the main thing that I want to share with you, Honourable Speaker. We are going to continue to work hard for you. We've delivered on many of our election commitments to date. More to come.
The honourable member for Midland.
Honourable Speaker, this Premier likes to talk a big game about his fuel tax holiday when in reality on January 1st, Manitobans are about to experience the largest fuel tax that they have ever seen in Manitoba history. And while that's happening, this Premier is remaining silent on the carbon tax. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation and 55% of Manitobans want to see this Premier challenge Trudeau's unfair treatment of Western Canadians. Trudeau's carbon tax on home heating fuels in Manitoba, but not in Atlantic Canada, is simply unfair and discriminatory.
Yeah.
Last week, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith applied for a judicial review to exempt from Ottawa's federal carbon tax. Will this Premier join Alberta's legal challenge and fight for the carbon tax to be removed from natural gas?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. One of the things that we're proudest of is that we cut the gas tax. Honourable Speaker, 7.5 years. Every single day, they charge 14 cents a litre on Manitobans. They come into this House, they talk about, what life could have been like perhaps under a continued PC government. Manitobans, no, it would have been continued charging 14 cents a litre every single day. They did not take action. We took action. And that gas tax cut was only one of a long list of 21 measures that we brought in with our budget, something our government is incredibly proud of. We're doing the work. We're making life more affordable while we make the investments in things Manitobans sent us here to do, fix healthcare and improve affordability.
The honourable member for Midland on a supplementary question.
This Premier continues to remain silent on Trudeau's carbon tax. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is standing up for Western Canadians. She said, and I quote, "Less than 1% of people in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba use home heating oil. The outcome is blatantly unfair for people in Alberta and other parts of Canada who use natural gas and other fuels to stay warm in the winter." I table that today. Alberta's Premier is standing up for Manitoba, but our own Premier is remaining silent.
Yeah,
we're heading into the winter months, and this Premier needs to stop sitting on the fence and propping up Trudeau's carbon tax. Will he immediately join Alberta's legal challenge against the federal carbon tax, and will he move to stop collecting carbon tax from home heating today?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, what did Manitobans get under their leadership for 7.5 years? Nothing. They got years and years of inaction. That's fact. They come here and they talk about, what they expect to see from us when the reality is we took action. We took action almost immediately after coming into this building, and we're incredibly proud of that. We're proud that in very short order, we brought in real savings that benefit Manitobans every single time they go to the pump. And as our Premier has outlined today, it's not only benefiting us when we go to the pump, those changes have impacted inflation in this province, reduced inflation by 0.4% in this last report alone. That's helping Manitobans across this province in every respect. We are doing the work of making life more affordable, and we're going to continue doing that work.
The honourable member for Midland.
Removing the carbon tax would save the average Manitoban $318 this year. 55% of Manitobans want the carbon tax removed from all heating fuels. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is calling on the Premier to join the challenge. I table that today. Will this Premier stand up, take action to defend Manitoba, and challenge Trudeau from his unfair carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, our measure, our fuel tax measure, over the course of the year that will have been put in place by the end of December, will have saved Manitobans an average of $500 per family. That is real action, Honourable Speaker. That's real action in addition to the long list of other actions we brought forward, whether it's the $1,500 homeowner affordability credit or the broad middle-class tax cuts we brought in. That's the work of our government, focused on the real everyday challenges that Manitobans are facing, something Manitobans didn't benefit from for 7.5 years when they had a government that wasn't attuned to their reality. Finally, as of last October 3rd, Manitobans had a government they can count on. We're going to keep doing that work of making life more affordable.
The honourable member for Roblin.
The Minister of Health has repeatedly claimed that no one at the Diagnostic and Surgical Recovery Task Force knew what they were working on, a statement that's an insult to the top doctors and medical professionals that completed 85,000 procedures for Manitobans. So today I'll table a leaked shared health status update dated September 13th, 2023, showing that the DSRTF had 106 projects in operation and 62 planned projects in progress. These projects had clear tracking and timelines with updates like this one regularly sent to healthcare and government leadership. How many of these projects did the NDP cut when they fired the task force?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, our government was graciously awarded the opportunity by Manitobans to do something they didn't see happen for 7.5 years. And that is invest in making healthcare in our own province the best that it can possibly be for the citizens we serve. On this side of the House, we came into office and found the previous government had not only worked very hard to decimate the healthcare system, but to decimate relationships with the experts who guide us in our healthcare journey in this province. We started from day one repairing those relationships, and we've made some great progress as a result, but there's more work to do. We're going to keep doing that for Manitobans.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a supplementary question.
According to the same leaked data that I just tabled, 77 RFSA contracts were signed with public and private providers to expand surgical and diagnostic capacity in Manitoba. Now, despite repeated requests from me and from the media, the Minister of Health has thus far refused to provide any clarity about the status of these contracts. But we do know that only half as many cataract surgeries have occurred at Western Surgery Centre this year compared to last year. And that was one of the key RFSA contracts signed by the DSRTF. So can the minister specify how many of these 77 contracts are currently operational? How many have been cancelled under their watch, and what has the impact been to Manitoba patients?
Yep, good question.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, the impact has been that we are doing more surgeries and more diagnostics in our own province than we've ever done before.
Way to go. Oh, too bad. Too bad for the PCs.
Honourable Speaker, we're doing more cataract surgeries than we've ever done. All of this, Honourable Speaker, after 7.5 years of cuts, chaos, and disrespecting healthcare workers by the previous failed Heather Stephenson government and members on that side of the House.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
According to CIHI data, Manitoba now has the second largest surgical and diagnostic backlog in the country. Wow. A backlog that has only gotten worse since the NDP fired the people responsible for reducing it. The data I tabled today shows that 62 projects were actively in progress as of September last year. Meanwhile, wait times for CTs, MRIs, hip and knee surgeries, and cataracts have all surged, and the NDP has offered no plan and no explanation. I can only imagine the impact that those 62 projects would have had on those wait lists had they proceeded. But then the NDP came in and cut them. How many contracts have been cancelled? How many projects were cancelled when the NDP fired the Diagnostic and Surgical Recovery Task Force?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I'll remind the member opposite, because she might not be aware, it's actually the former head of the Diagnostic Task Force that made very clear during the pandemic that the backlog for surgeries and diagnostics predated COVID-19 ever reaching Manitoba's borders. Honourable Speaker, we are cleaning up the surgical mess and diagnostic mess that was made by the previous failed PC government. Honourable Speaker, they had 7.5 years to clear backlog. They didn't do it. Honourable Speaker, on this side of the House, we are doing that work each day for Manitobans. We're doing more surgeries, more diagnostics than we ever have before. There's more work to do. We're going to keep doing that on behalf of Manitobans, something they didn't do for 7.5 years.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Honourable Speaker, WTF? Why that fast? This is the public messaging from the Winnipeg Police Service aimed at reminding motorists to drive according to the speed limit, which I table. Under this minister, however, one Winnipegger found out how simply sharing this message, encouraging motorists to slow down, has become an invitation for violence. Wow. This man's sole crime was asking the driver of a stolen vehicle speeding through his neighborhood to slow down, and as a result, he was stabbed. Imagine that. Manitobans can no longer encourage people to obey the laws without being stabbed and left with life-altering injuries. So I ask this minister, WTF, where's the fairness?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As it's my first opportunity to rise in the House, I wanted to offer my deepest condolences to the family, to the friends, to the colleagues of a great Manitoban, Justice Murray Sinclair. As Minister of Justice and Attorney General for the province of Manitoba, his work continues to echo through the work that we do every single day. And on a personal level, his words and his approach to the important work that we have in front of us has been a guiding light. I think it was an important question on public safety. I look forward to answering that in my second answer.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, under the watchful eye of this Minister of Justice, Manitoba is recording a violent carjacking every few days. Manitobans are not safe shopping, at church, or even dining out without being violently assaulted, dragged from one's vehicle, and even run over. Of the almost 60 violent carjackings so far this year, can this minister share how many victims had to be hospitalized, either because of the initial carjacking assault or being run over by their own stolen vehicle?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
This is what's frustrating, Honourable Speaker, is the members opposite were part of a government that for 7.5 years did absolutely nothing when it comes to public safety. They picked fights with other levels of government. They refused to take any kind of accountability or responsibility for the worsening state of public safety throughout our communities and across the province. And now they come to this House and say, as if they have some kind of moral authority on this, that we should be doing more. Well, we are doing lots, Honourable Speaker. We're working across this province, seeking input from community, working together with law enforcement, and building that future of one Manitoba that Manitobans elected us to do. We're going to continue to unite people while the members opposite
Time has expired. The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a final supplementary question.
I will answer that question. What's this government doing wrong? Lots. The Canadian government seems obvious to the violence spreading throughout our communities. The Minister of Justice is hopping from one crisis to the next, offering buzzwords and band-aids, but no tangible actions. A key component to the NDP's Safer Communities promise was bail reform. So, I asked the Minister of Justice, of the 60 violent carjackings that have occurred so far in 2024, how many arrests have been made, and how many of those carjackings involved an offender that was out on bail?
Good.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Members opposite want to know what LOTS is. Well, LOTS is $4 million for bail reform right here in the province of Manitoba. Real dollars to solve issues created by them. $2.9 million for ankle bracelets, a program cut under Heather Stephenson that we brought back and we're getting underway. The members opposite want to know what LOTS is. LOTS is 12 new officers hitting the ground in the streets of Winnipeg. After their time in office, 55 officers lost, gone from the city of Winnipeg. That's their record. Our record is doing lots for the people of Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, last year under this Premier, we saw the Christmas Cheer Board had to shut off their phones for the first time ever. Every time we have asked about affordability for people that may not be able to afford to drive a car, we hear about a 14 cents gas tax holiday. Why are aid organizations being forced to turn away needy Manitobans?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, I do want to just take a moment to, on behalf of our government, really honor and lift up the incredible work that folks like the Christmas Cheer Board and all of those folks that are on the front lines of supporting families who are struggling right now at Christmas. I know that when I was a little girl, my mom often would apply for those Christmas hampers, and I remember waiting for those Christmas hampers because sometimes those were actually the only gifts that I ever got. So on this side of the House, we honor and we appreciate and understand how important those organizations are for Manitobans struggling right now.
The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, we know the last year 3 calls were coming into the Cheer Board every second. Manitobans want to help, but like the oxygen mask on an airplane, you can only help others when you're able to. That's why demands are up and donations are down. When Manitoba growers announced they had excess potatoes, Manitobans from all over organized to get the food banks and into hands of those that need them most. So I asked the Premier, why does he not restore the $4.75 million food security fund? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. One of the things that our government did, our first thing that our government did, is we instituted a universal school nutrition program, something that members opposite were so against and thought that it was such a bad idea. We are on the front lines of supporting families and supporting children to ensure that children have food when they're at school. No child should be hungry when they're at school. Again, I want to remind folks that every single member across thought it was a bad idea to want to support and feed children. Feed children was a bad idea to members opposite. So we'll take no lessons from any single one of them opposite.
The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie on a final supplementary
Honourable Speaker, I want to take a moment to speak to all Manitobans today. If you have the ability, please help out the Cheer Board or any organizations like that. And to those folks that are having times struggling, please reach out to the Cheer Board. There's people out there that want to help out. Last year, this government shut down the $4.75 million food security fund, and the Cheer Board had to turn to folks in need away. Will this minister guarantee this government will return funds to the Cheer Board? Yes or no?
Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
I'd like to share with the House and with the member opposite, actually families, and members may not know this, we actually support through our Families Department casual staff that go every year to help out the Christmas Cheer Board. We know how important the Christmas Cheer Board is to families, and we will continue to do that in the Department of Families. You know, the other thing that we did, Honourable Speakers, when we assumed government, when we were so lucky to be able to do that, was we also doubled the prenatal benefit. We know that providing that support to expectant parents has long-term effects that can only help our province in the long run, and again, help support those children and those families that are most at need.
The Honourable Member for Tuxedo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Our government was elected to fix the healthcare mess created by Heather Stephenson's PC government. They damaged healthcare and created chaos while also disrespecting healthcare workers across the system. We are committed to fixing the chaos and know the first step is adding staff beds to the healthcare system. Can the Minister of Health update the House about the progress of that our government has made in adding staffed beds so Manitobans can get the care when they need it? Good job.
The Honourable Minister of Health, seniors in long-term care?
I'd like to thank my colleague, the MLA for Tuxedo, for that wonderful question, that important question. Honourable Speaker, we know the previous government closed over 500 beds from across the province between hospitals, ERs, and personal care homes, and they fired nurses. Our government is taking a different approach. We've opened over 112 acute care beds with a plan to open 70 more, 43 transitional care beds with a plan to open 27 more, and we funded 26 new ICU and PICU beds with 4 step-down beds as well. We've also added 16 new beds at the Grace Hospital in last fiscal year. Manitobans elected us to fix healthcare, Honourable Speaker. We're cleaning up the mess left by the previous government. We're getting the work done across this province.
Right up. The honourable member for Agassiz.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It was very clear that the addition of significant Labour legislation to the BITSA bill was made in haste. During committee last week, the government brought forward multiple amendments to their own bill. The Chamber of Commerce says the changes trample on workers' ability to choose whether they should go back to work based on their personal circumstances, and that union rights trample individual rights. What does this minister have to say in response to these concerns?
The Honourable Minister for Labour and Immigration.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to member opposite for your question. On this side of the House, we're proud to stand with workers every single day of the week. On this side of the House, we're proud to put through legislation that's historic to make sure that workers' rights are going to be protected like never before in this province.
That's right.
History.
Members opposite don't know a thing when it comes to respecting the rights of workers. It's a good thing that Manitoba has elected a government that cares about workers all across this province, and it's our pleasure to be able to put through this historic legislation that will hopefully pass by this year. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The honourable member for Agassiz on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, these changes will put the burden on workers and create unnecessary complexity. Manitobans did not have the opportunity to participate in the legislative process and speak at public committee to voice their concerns. We've heard from the minister that the changes were made in response to recommendations from the Labour Management Review Committee. Can the minister share the list of all recommendations made by the LMRC?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Immigration.
Honourable Speaker, members opposite remind me of my mother-in-law. No matter how great this legislation was that we put forward, never it's going to be enough, okay? Honourable Speaker, we put through this historic legislation. It was wonderful legislation. And then Manitobans said to us, you know what? It could still be better. We listened to Manitobans, so we improved it using this new amendment. 3 great new amendments to improve this legislation, but no, not good enough. On this side of the House, we know it's good enough. It's going to be respecting Manitobans and all workers across this province.
Order. 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 The honourable member for Agassiz.
Honourable Speaker, they are not listening. They are not listening to all Manitobans. This did not go to public committee. We know that this legislation was rushed and done without proper consultation. We have heard stories of interference from the Premier's office and saw that this legislation was incomplete when multiple amendments were brought forward last week at committee. We know that not all recommendations from the LMRC were taken when bringing forward this legislation. Can the minister share why all recommendations were not included and why this legislation was rushed?
The Honourable Minister for Labour and Immigration.
Honourable Speaker, you know, it's a new day in Manitoba. We have a government, we have a premier that has a vision for this province for the next 100 years. to take it from this have-not status to a have status. And we're going to be doing that with workers who build Manitoba, with businesses who have the innovation and the strength to build Manitoba. We are doing this working together as a partnership for the betterment of Manitoba, and we will take no lessons from members opposite.
The honourable member for Lakeside.
Honourable Speaker, rural parents are setting up multiple computers, phone lines to try and increase their chances of securing a spot in MPI's Driver Z program. But these spots are getting more and more difficult to access, with entire courses being filled within minutes. Road safety starts here in Manitoba with our 15-and-a-half-year-old educated drivers. Mr. Honourable Speaker, why is this NDP government putting up roadblocks for young rural drivers?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I just want to correct the, maybe not the Hansard, but certainly the audio and video recordings of today. It is Driver Z is the program, Driver Z, and that is an important program, and it's an important program throughout the province, but Canada. Very, very important, of course, in rural Manitoba and especially in Westman. That's why it's an important program to enhance by partnerships with instructors throughout the province and with instruction institutions. This has been a focus of MPI. It's certainly been a focus of our government. We're working to fix the mess of the previous government, and we're hard at work at doing so.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Lakeside. Honourable member for Lakeside.
Honourable Speaker, parents have called me sharing that in order to secure a place in a Driver Z program, they have taken to registering their child hundreds of kilometres away. Amy Sorby has to drive her son almost 500 kilometres round trip every week to attend his course in another town. That's time away from her farm, her family, and her community. Is this minister prepared to pay mileage to parents, or will they be stuck with the bill for this poor planning?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Again, this is an incredibly important program, and it's worth investing in and ensuring that it works. Unfortunately, the previous government did neither of those things. In fact, what they did with MPI is, first of all, they failed to anticipate the pent-up demand from the pandemic and the impact that that was going to have on the program. But then, of course, what did they do? They meddled with MPI, numerous CEOs, a string of CEOs making bad decisions, and then perpetrated a strike which impacted MPI that we're still cleaning up. Now, the member opposite could spend some time talking to the front bench, getting some answers from former ministers about why they messed things up so poorly. We're getting to work. We're working with the Assiniboine Community College. We're working with
Time has expired. And the time for question period has expired. Petitions. Grievances. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And Honourable Speaker, I stand today to bring forward a grievance against the Canoe government on the Lac du Bonny Personal Care Home, Honourable Speaker. You see, many members across the way of all political stripes as well should understand that the Lac du Bonny Personal Care Home does not only service those that are residents of the area. The Lac du Bonny Personal Care Home will be servicing those individuals that have lived within Manitoba, that call cottage country, the Lac du Bonny area home. And that's what we want to see, Honourable Speaker. People come out, possibly live in their cottages as well as time goes on, and then have those services closer to home for those individuals. Let me recap some history for the members opposite, especially the NDP members in the Canoe government. You see, Honourable Speaker, Gary Dewar and the now Premier's mentor, Greg Selinger, had promised the residents of the Lac du Bonny constituency a personal care home many, many years ago. But you see, Honourable Speaker, no money, no plans, and no documentation supported those claims, Honorable Speaker. In 2012, Greg Selinger showed up with a skeletal crew, of course, a few photographers, but no health minister, to promise the Lactabani area and residents a personal care home that was going to start construction in 2014. Nothing happened in 2013, nothing happened in 2014. I'm on a roll.
If I could get members to take their conversations to the loge or somewhere else, I'm having a hard time hearing what the member's saying. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, can we reset the clock there a little bit? I lost a few seconds, but I appreciate your guidance, Honourable Speaker. So 2014, construction was supposed to start. The only thing that actually went up in the area was a sign which was purchased and placed by the community. And since then, the NDP government, back in the day under Greg Selinger, the now Premier's mentor, didn't even provide a weed whacker to be able to trim around the sign, Honourable Speaker. So then fast forward to 2016, when the Progressive Conservative government got into, our party got into government. There was no money to be seen for the Lactabani personal care home, no plans from the former NDP government, and no documentation supporting those claims, Honourable Speaker. So we again fast forward. What did the NDP leave? The NDP left a large deficit, a large debt, which they more than tripled in just 8 years. So then fast forward to 2023, with documents in tow and the money in place, there was a groundbreaking for the new Lactabani personal care home, a 90-bed personal care home. So we're simply asking on behalf of the Lactabani constituents and Manitobans who reside in cottage country and who want to age where they are enjoying their time, Honourable Speaker, to the NDP government, the Canoe government, to continue with the Progressive Conservative Lactabani personal care home plan. Now, Honourable Speaker, I know the Premier's going to get up in the next few days and he's going to write a little column over to some of our local papers, maybe even the Winnipeg Free Press or the Winnipeg Sun, and say how the member for Lactabani, which is myself, is not voting for this year's budget. But, Honourable Speaker, the fact is that the documents proving that the personal care home for Lactabani under our government was going to be put in place, plus the money was put in place. So we're asking and urging this Premier to do good by his word and continue on with the Lactabani personal care home. I did want to put on the record, Honourable Speaker, some reasons for not voting for the 2024 budget, voting against the NDP, the Canoe government's budget. So the budget allows the NDP to raise fuel taxes overnight at the cabinet table, which we will see come the beginning of 2025. The budget rakes in hundreds of millions in new and increased property taxes on Manitobans with cottages and second homes, Honourable Speaker. The budget eliminates basic personal amounts and increases income taxes on doctors and skilled professionals and tradespeople like engineers. The budget waters down financial accountability for Manitoba Hydro by eliminating the legislated requirement for Hydro to pay down its debt to keep electricity rates low. The budget strips businesses of their rights by banning the use of replacement workers during labor disputes. The budget strips workers of their democratic rights by eliminating the use of secret ballots and while lowering thresholds for automatic union certification. The budget doubles taxpayer-funded rebates for political parties, which the NDP never campaigned on and which they intend to use to fund their election war chest. The budget does not include funding for 9 new schools with daycares planned in Winnipeg, Brandon, West St. Paul, Neepawa, and St. Anne. The budget does not include funding for 2 care homes planned in Winnipeg and Arborg, which have already gone through Treasury Board. The budget cut tens of millions of dollars from community development and summer jobs programs such as Green Teams, ACSC, and Building Sustainable Communities amid a concerning rise in youth unemployment in Manitoba. Now, Honourable Speaker, simply just asking the NDP to stop playing games and move ahead with the progressive conservative plan to build the Lac du Bonny personal care home. I know that during estimates, I had asked the question about the $70 to $80 million plan for the Lac du Bonny personal care home, and the Premier himself stood up and said, it's not going to cost that much. It's going to cost $66.4 million. So then I might as well ask at this time, Honourable Speaker, so if in fact that we had the money set aside for the $70, $80 million 90-bed personal care home in Lac du Bonny, and this Premier is so sure of himself that by delaying it for over a year is actually going to reduce the cost, some kind of NDP math, Honourable Speaker, but he is saying $66.4 million. So then I'll strongly encourage him to take that additional 3.6 to $13.6 million and start again moving forward with the construction that has been paused by his infrastructure minister. So take those funds and start making sure that the turning lanes on 313, 433, and of course the 520 gets upgraded as well. So with that, Honourable Speaker, I know that the Premier has already invited me to the ribbon cutting of the Lac du Bonny personal care home. In order for the two of us plus others to attend the ribbon cutting of the Lac du Bonny personal care home, I strongly encourage him to let the project continue and get to work, Honourable Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, can you please dissolve into Committee of Supply?
Now resolve into Committee of Supply. The Deputy Speaker can take the chair.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Finance, which last met on October 30th, 2024, in another section of the Committee of Supply. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber.
You could probably get changed. Sure.
Could the minister please introduce his staff in attendance?
Matt.
The Honorable Minister.
Last name, right? Yeah.
The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair, for your patience in the introductions there. Appreciate the opportunity to introduce the team here. Start with Ann Liebfried, our ADM and EFO. We have Matt Wiebe, our ADM and Treasury Board Secretariat, and of course our Deputy, Silcom Lodi from Finance. Thank you.
Thank you. And could the critic please introduce her staff in attendance? The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you. Pleased to have our staff, Duncan Hamilton, with me, who is a wealth of knowledge on the finance portfolio, and very happy he's here.
As previously agreed, questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you, and it's great to be back here today and posed numerous questions last week to the minister, and hopefully today we can get some more direct answers from him. The minister and the NDP campaigned on not raising any taxes, but now they've been busy breaking that promise in this year's budget estimates and their first year in office. We have not only seen a 17% school tax increases and higher education property taxes that are coming for Manitobans, but they have also ended the phase-out plan for education property tax altogether, and their increases to school taxes will eventually erase any benefit that their homeowners tax credit will have on Manitobans. And now the Premier, as we've heard, is speculating on much higher municipal property taxes that will also erase any benefit that the NDP's homeowner tax credits will have. Everyone will be back to paying crippling property and school taxes that will make owning a home significantly less affordable for young families. Now, the NDP is again breaking a promise to deliver a new middle-class tax cut, and instead proposing to phase out the basic personal amount, which will soon impact doctors, nurses, police officers, school teachers, engineers, farmers, and many small business owners. But they have yet to provide any details on who this tax cut or tax increase will impact. I asked the minister numerous times in committee, as well as in these chambers, what his income tax will impact with the $200,000 threshold. Not only was he unable to answer how he came up with the $200,000 threshold to begin clawing back the basic personal amount, but he was also unable to answer how many Manitobans that tax grab will actually impact. We don't know if this will be indexed every year, so that when wages of teachers, nurses, police officers go up, will they be impacted or will they not be? So I will ask the minister and the department to tell us today whether they will be indexing this new basic personal amount phase out so that middle class working families are not gradually taxed more and more as wages climb to keep up with inflation.
the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. It's great to be back in committee with the critic. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about the great work that's happening under the leadership of our Premier and our government. I want to start today just with this opportunity to put words on the record, just to again recognize the loss of Judge Murray Sinclair and what that means to Manitoba. The Premier spoke eloquently today about the impact of that loss, but again, just want to use this opportunity to send my condolences to the family of Judge Sinclair, all those who were close to him and that he was connected with, and frankly to all Manitobans for this loss. It's almost impossible to articulate what this means, I think, for our province. The loss is enormous. It impacts us in so many ways. We've lost a giant, and today we mourn that loss. So having said that, happy to turn to the question at hand that was raised by the critic, and frankly just delighted again to have an opportunity to talk about the good work that's been happening in improving affordability here in Manitoba. Maybe just to start is something that's been raised, I've heard in committee several times by the critic, which is something that a promise that we heard articulated from the former government that, frankly, I think just like so many other things that they promised, they had no plan to pay for. And that's this idea that somehow they were going to wipe away all school taxation in the province. I think just like their commitments to, their promises about schools and a number of other things which were never in budget and frankly they had no plan for, I think we know we can't trust. And again, we just have to look at the reality of the situation when we look at their promises around schools, that they didn't have a plan. And I think that lack of planning and that lack of focus on sustainability is one of the factors that led us to having a $2 billion deficit that, again, was reported not so recently now, but we saw emerge through public accounts, which created a giant hole that we now have to dig ourselves out of due to mismanagement on the part of the former government. And so, lots of promises and things that I think, frankly, they were telling Manitobans that set Manitobans up for, again, thinking that they were going to be taking actions in any number of areas that they were speaking to that we know, again, very clear that they did not have a plan. And that is what led us to where we found ourselves with that $2 billion deficit. And we know that that's, again, a big challenge that threatened our province's core finances. We know that that placed us in a tough position as a new government in terms of how to find our way out of the hole that they'd created for us here. And also, frankly, just in terms of rebuilding confidence in the market. Making sure lenders knew that as a new government, we were not going to be taking the same approach that the last government had brought to the table. And I think we've seen that we're seeing success in that work we're doing and rebuilding confidence and developing relationships with lenders, with those who want to invest in Manitoba. But again, it's a deep hole that we've been forced to dig ourselves out of due to their mismanagement. And, to the member's question, which is fundamentally, I think the premise is wrong, which is that we are not bringing savings to Manitoba. I'm happy to report that we are, and that we're doing a significant number of things here. We've got a number of measures that are focused on reducing costs for Manitobans, whether that is our gas tax holiday, which will have been in place for a full year in December 31st, and we know that's going to save Manitobans an approximate $500 per family, or our $1,500 homeowner affordability credit, or our basic personal exemption increases, or our bracket changes. We are working to save Manitobans money every single day, and we're proud of it.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I've said this numerous times on the record that the education property tax model is an out-of-date concept that Manitoba is the last jurisdiction in Canada to continue to use. When former Premier Brian Pallister was elected, he increased the rebate to 25%, it then became 50%, and the PCs were well on their way to completely eliminating the education property tax and developing a sustainable education funding formula. I'd like to remind the minister that his own party during the election made promises to Manitobans saying that they would retain the 50% provincial property tax rebate and continue to index provincial income tax brackets to inflation. These are very simple questions that I'm asking the minister if he's planning to keep those promises that his premier made during the election campaign, or if his premier was just paying lip service to Manitobans to get elected. They promised a middle-class tax cut, but now what they're delivering is a middle-class tax grab, whether it's increases to school taxes and property taxes, ending the phase-out of the education property tax, and canceling of the basic personal amount for dual-income families with their new doctor's tax. So let's work this out. If we have 2 school teachers, or a nurse and a police officer, or 2 police officers, they're going to start to lose their basic personal amount when you start combining that family's income. From what I've heard, and I've asked this numerous times of the minister, whether he has thought this through, this $200,000 income threshold, and I've asked him numerous times if he could provide details on how he plans to implement the basic personal amount and whether it is going to be indexed as wages increase and to inflation. The minister nor the department have not provided any detail, in particular during the bill briefing last spring, and this has continued on into this fall session. So can the minister now deliver us more information on how he plans to implement this basic personal amount phase out to dual income working families, and how much more tax dollars does he plan to be taking from families, and how many families will this be impacting?
the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Again, appreciate the opportunity to talk about the good work that our government is doing to make life more affordable for Manitobans. There was a lot in the last question. I think I might just start by just referencing or just speaking to one of the comments that the last government was well on their way to, I think the proposal is that they would well on their way to eliminating education taxes entirely. Again, that is at this point a myth. There was no plan to pay for that, just like there was no plan to pay for the schools they were committing. And again, we know that they left us with a fiscal challenge that this province, the likes of which this province has not seen, with a $2 billion deficit. And that's as a result of a failure to plan, poor fiscal accountability. And again, I had a chance to talk about this last week, but I think it's worth repeating here today for folks who might be watching online or are interested in today's committee, that we saw really in black and white some of the things that really drove that $2 billion deficit when MNP, a very respected independent accounting firm, did a review of PC government decision-making, financial decision-making specifically. And that report does a really good job of outlining the factors that went in, the many factors that went in to Manitoba being left with a $2 billion hole that we need to now contend with the impacts of. And, I think in looking at that report, I think the average Manitoban takes away the same feeling, the same concern, which is that it was clear that the last government tried to obfuscate or really create an impression that there was a certain state of affairs within Manitoba's finances that simply were not in place. And we can look to July 28th, which was an important day here in Manitoba prior to the last election, when the last government came to provide a fiscal update to Manitobans before the election, the last one that they would ultimately provide prior to October 3rd. And they presented information which was not reflective of the actual state of affairs. And now they have to wear that. And unfortunately, I know that's not something, I'm sure, for the member opposite who wasn't there that they want to have to contend with, but that's just the reality of what Manitobans experienced under their leadership. It was that lack of transparency with what was actually happening, and it made clear that they did not have a plan that was financially sustainable. One of the things that I spoke about last week, and that's referenced in the MNP report, is the fact that they made hundreds of millions of dollars of spending commitments, actually the day before, on July 27th, that were not reflected in that quarterly update that they provided to Manitobans on July 28th. So that was sort of the first thing that they didn't disclose. They also had a very difficult water year in that year, a drought year. And in that year, they budgeted an exorbitant amount for hydro net income profits, over $500 million. And even though it was deep into the summer, and we know that the majority of our water comes between March to, throughout the summer, that we'd had this drought, which is not again, this isn't a surprise that we were going to have a tough year. Even though they'd budgeted this gargantuan amount for net income, 500 something million for hydro profits, they didn't disclose that. And ultimately we landed in a net income deficit of 150 million for hydro in that fiscal, almost a $600 million swing. Now, I know why they didn't want to disclose the state of affairs for hydro's net income, because that would have really, that would have been very concerning for Manitobans just in advance of an election. But it's important, Mr. Chair, that we bring forward transparent information to Manitobans, and that that's especially true before an election. So there, I think those are just two items. I'm not even mentioning the fact that even though they had every reason to know that tax revenues were headed in the wrong direction relative to budget, they also failed to disclose that. So overall, just a deeply concerning record. And I would just say, one last point. the members misleading Manitobans in that Manitobans are assessed on an individual basis when it comes to taxation.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you. And maybe I just need to reframe my questions and make it more simple for the minister, as he takes 5 minutes to answer a question without an answer within his answer. So I'm going to be very, very simple, and I'd appreciate if he could provide the exact amount, or at least an approximate amount. We're looking at 148 million more out of Manitobans' pockets with the increase to education property taxes, and we have the end of the phase out. He has yet to answer how much he will be collecting from his phase out of the basic personal amount for dual income middle class families. So I'll ask this very clearly. Can the minister tell us how much more revenue he will be collecting from his phase out of the basic personal amount for dual income middle class families?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Again, really pleased to have this opportunity to talk about our affordability measures and the impacts, the incredibly positive impacts that they're having on Manitobans after many years of Manitobans' needs, especially on the affordability front, just not being met by the last government. You know, I'm often lucky to stand up in this House and to talk about our affordability measures here in this chamber, which I'm grateful for every time I get that opportunity. And I often, when I do have those opportunities, it's important to not only talk about the work that we're doing to reduce costs for Manitobans, but we also need to remind Manitobans of what happened for 7.5 years under the previous government. And I can just point to a lot of really bad decisions that were made by the members opposite over 7.5 years. Whether that was increasing costs through hydro rate increases, new and novel creative ways of doing that. I mean, not only did they seek to eliminate the role of the Public Utilities Board with their bill that essentially kneecapped the pub and did away with their role, and instead did away with the role of the pub in favor of financial targets and ultimately hydro rates set at the cabinet table. They also did things like raise taxes on renters. They raised taxes on renters by $175 in 1 year, in the midst of an affordability crisis, I might add. Those are the kind of decisions, I think, that highlight the kind of government that Manitobans had for 7.5 years. And so, reflecting on what we've done since we've come in to make life more affordable, the member is, again, I appreciate that she's asking questions about the impacts of our affordability measures, and I'm here to share them. We have not only, as we talked about a lot in the House today, and that was a lot of fun, talking about the impacts of our gas tax holiday, but we know that measure, again, we brought that in almost immediately after we came in, and that was put in place for January 1st, saving Manitobans money every time they go to the pump. And again, we're estimating about $500 in savings for the average family stemming from that. our homeowner affordability tax credit, $1,500. This is going to go such a long way for Manitobans in every corner of the province. We know that it's going to really help new homeowners who are just getting their first home. And the reality is this credit and the way that it's being implemented is likely going to wipe out school taxes entirely for a huge portion of Manitobans. That is going to be life-changing for so many in our province. And I know when I have the benefit of going out and speaking with people in my community and when I travel around the province, this is something we know that Manitobans are going to feel a huge impact from in such a positive way. And I think it speaks to the focus that our government has on the well-being of Manitobans and understanding those challenges. That's saying nothing about the the changes that we brought into the basic personal amount, which the critic is asking about, which was increased in a way that will again bring significant financial benefits to Manitobans. In addition to that, we also brought in, of course, our bracket changes, which will ensure that Manitoba is a more competitive province relative to our neighbors. We've made a big jump there in terms of our competitiveness, lowering taxes on more of the revenue that Manitobans are earning. And again, this speaks to the good work that's happening. So we can't just focus on the increases we made to the basic personal exemption. We can't just focus on the bracket increases. We can't just focus on the homeowner affordability credit. We shouldn't just focus on the gas tax holiday. We can look at the long list of other things we've done as well, including responding to that rather concerning tax increase they placed on renters of $175 a year that they took out of the pockets of seniors, people on fixed incomes, people with disabilities who make up the vast majority of folks who are renting. If the members interested in learning more about the fiscal impacts of the measures that we took, I do invite her to refer to page 122 of the budget document.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I appreciate that the minister is taking credit for the bracket increases that were implemented by the former PC government. But I appreciate that the minister has brought up Manitoba Hydro, because while he was in opposition criticizing any increases to hydro rates, he has now proposed as high as 4% annual rate increases at Manitoba Hydro while setting them himself at the cabinet table. This is more than a little hypocritical and seems to be the exact opposite of what the government would be doing to help make life more affordable for Manitobans. Further, by doing this, he has completely broken his promise to freeze hydro rates. The NDP's pile of broken promises is piling up quickly, along with their hypocrisy. So I ask the minister when his promised hydro rate freeze will be delivered for Manitobans, how would he pay for that rate freeze, and if he's going to reverse these 4% annual rate increases that he and his cabinet colleagues have approved.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. I love hydro. I love talking about hydro, so I want to really say how much I appreciate the chance to talk more about hydro and just the good work that's been happening under our government and moving things ahead. Just speak briefly about how proud I am about the energy policy that we released not too long ago. There's a number of really exciting commitments that are made through that policy, directions set. But one of the things that I'm really most proud of is that we set a clear course ahead on how we can meet our energy needs in the near to medium term through partnerships with First Nations to develop 600 megawatts of new wind energy here in Manitoba. For 7.5 years, the only thing that the last government did when it came to hydro was work on raising hydro rates as quickly as they possibly could. That was their record. And I know the member opposite there, they know that that's accurate, and all we can do is almost laugh at how unbelievably bad it was as a record of governance at hydro. 7.5 years. And we saw that instead of, again, building out hydro, they focused on rate increases. And so just something we really can celebrate here, which is that in a year after getting in government, less than a year, we released a policy that outlined how we are going to ensure that Manitobans and Manitoban businesses will have the energy they need to keep doing, in the case of businesses, the work of growing our economy, and of course, how we'll ensure that Manitobans can have the energy they need to power their homes and take care of their families. So that's, I think, a really important thing that we've delivered with that policy, and it shows just what you get when you elect an NDP government, a focus on ensuring that needs are met and that we will have the energy we need to meet our needs, and we're going to do that in a way that ensures energy remains affordable. Look, when we're talking about hydro rates and our commitment to keeping them low, I don't think there's any question, Chair, about which party is actually focused on keeping hydro rates affordable. We saw for many years the various approaches that the last government took to try to increase hydro rates in new and novel ways. One way that I haven't talked about yet today is the fact that they used a BITSA bill. A BITSA bill in the middle of an affordability crisis during COVID to implement a hydro rate increase in a way that it has never been implemented in this province before. Skirting around the Public Utilities Board, no accountability to that process. They put it in a BITSA bill. And again, that was the very first time that our province has ever seen a government attempt to do that. And why is that concerning? Because it's very important that when hydro rates are set, that Manitobans have the benefit of knowing that they're not paying too much. And how do we know that? We know that through a robust process that occurs through an independent regulator, specifically the Public Utilities Board. So they legislated a hydro rate increase, and again, for the first time did that to Manitobans without the benefit of knowing whether or not that increase was needed through a Public Utilities Board-led process. And then, of course, for 3 years in a row, they brought forward various permutations of what ended up becoming Bill 36, which was a bill that was entirely focused on one goal and one goal alone. And that was to raise hydro rates as quickly as possible. And I invite the member to look back at those financial targets and to consider what the impacts of that would be. What were the impacts of those hydro rate, of those financial targets that were outlined in Bill 36? They were set at the cabinet table. They were set without any connection to hydro's financial needs or their need to service their debt. They were set by politicians around a cabinet table with one goal and one goal alone, and that was to have hydro, to force hydro to meet unachievably high financial targets that were guaranteed to jack up hydro rates as quickly as possible. And that's their record. What's our record? Our record is we made a very clear commitment to freeze hydro rates for 1 year. we're committed to that, and we're looking forward to delivering on our commitments as we are in all of the commitments that we made to Manitobans.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you. And like the minister, I love talking about hydro. And as someone who has had the opportunity to watch and participate in a PUB hearing, I know how important it is that interveners, industry, and consumers have the opportunity to present their concerns to the Public Utilities Bill. So I asked the minister, will he commit to taking any hydro rate increase to the PUB, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. I thank the critic for further opportunity to talk about hydro here today, and to talk about the importance of the Public Utilities Board and the work that they do, and the fact that our government respects the important role that they play, which is very different than the last government. And of course, we saw many Manitobans raise concern with the bill that had been brought forward by the previous government, Bill 36, which again had gone through multiple iterations over a period of several years, where they, creatively tried to find new ways of undermining their work. So, it is. I believe the critic when she says that she supports the role of the pub, but I have to ask, in response to that, has she looked carefully at what their bill sought to do, which there's no argument to be made other than to say that that bill was focused on kneecapping the pub. The pub's role changed with that bill, or it was set to change by virtue of it changing their role from examining rate requests and determining whether or not those rates were sufficient to meet hydro's financial obligations, to instead their role was completely altered to be focused instead on whether or not rate increases were sufficient to meet the financial targets that her previous government had put in place. So that is literally the definition of undermining the role of the pub. We just have to say that with total clarity here, and it's important for Manitobans who are listening in that they recognize that that's what happened under the previous government. And thankfully, thanks to the amendments that we brought forward and the changes that are being proposed to that bill that they brought in, we are doing away with those financial targets, because those financial targets had one impact and one impact alone, and that was two impacts. Firstly, to undermine the Public Utilities Board and their work, and their very important work, and two, to raise rates, hydro rates on Manitobans. When we're talking about respect for the Public Utilities Board and their work, and again, the member opposite has suggested that she does respect the importance of their role. I appreciate that, but I would say that that's not the way things have panned out in terms of the record of her party. We can look at their record when it comes to Centra Gas. There was a period of almost 2 years where, because I don't know, there's a number of reasons, but I would think maybe basic managerial, a lack of managerial oversight. I could be perhaps less parliamentary here, but I won't. We saw the government, Hydro Centra, being fined every day for almost 2 years. And what was happening as a result of that? Those fines weren't just being paid, of course, by Centra or Hydro. They're ultimately being paid by Manitobans. That is the record that they have when it comes to respecting the pub. They completely refused for 2 years to honor really what amounts to a legal obligation. And again, we were fined, I think it was $100 a day for an extended period of time. That fine changed. But for years, they failed to live up to those basic requirements that created significant fiscal pressure at Centra. And ultimately, Manitobans are the ones who paid for that managerial incompetence, because all of those fines ultimately had to be paid by somebody, and at the end of the day, they were going to be borne by ratepayers. That's their record when it comes to Hydro, when it comes to Centra. It's a chronicle of failures. We're continuing to dig our way out of the challenges that they put in place, they created for Manitobans. And again, when it comes to the Public Utilities Board and respect for their work, there's no question that there's really only one party right now left in this province that has a demonstrated commitment to the role of the pub. To answer the question that was asked very succinctly here, we will honor the role of the pub in going forward with any rate changes at Manitoba Hydro, because we respect the important role that they play. The amendments we're making to the bill they brought in that undermine the pub will support that. And we know that's important because through that, we will ensure that Manitobans pay the lowest electricity rates possible.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. And, I've mentioned it in this chamber in the past, and the minister well knows that financial targets are a critical component to running any successful business, and especially critical when it comes to debt recovery. And we're talking about $24 billion of debt that Manitoba Hydro is in as a result of the former NDP Greg Selinger government. The minister has mentioned his new hydro policy. However, there is limited details on the cost for this project. And let me remind Manitobans that the last time the NDP meddled in Manitoba Hydro, they put Manitoba Hydro $24 billion in debt while using it as a slush fund for their spending. The new energy plan released this year, only 18 pages, I might add, lacks any transparency on timelines or cost. So can the minister, seeing as how he has brought it up today, can the minister provide how much, if any, has been budgeted for the new energy policy this year?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. And again, really great to have this opportunity to talk about hydro and our energy policy here today, and I appreciate the critics' interest in hearing all the details about that new policy. One thing that I know I was deeply concerned about, along with my colleagues and our Premier, was the lack of progress that we saw being made over the 7.5 years that the last government was in place. And, you know, when we came in, what was clear was that there is a significant number of industrial load asks, for example, that are out there of businesses that want to come here and invest in the province, that we have significant opportunities to support more investment, but we need that additional energy to meet those needs. And unfortunately, what we had was a government that for 7.5 years didn't develop one single megawatt of new energy under their leadership. There was no plan to meet those energy needs. There was no sense at all that there was risks that were being created as a result of that inaction. There was no vision of any kind for how to move Manitoba forward, to take advantage of the incredible opportunities we have as Manitoba, as a province that has 4 watersheds running through it. Nothing, Chair. There was no movement. And so we came into government and we unfortunately inherited that legacy of inaction that the last government forced Manitobans to endure through, and had to pick up from there. And ultimately, we brought forward an energy policy that I think is forward-looking, is focused on ensuring that we keep rates as affordable as possible, and that is focused on growing jobs, business opportunity, investment in Manitoba. And that's what we need to be doing as governments. We need to be setting the stage for more investment, for more opportunity. That was something that, unfortunately, the last government didn't seem to be tuned into, or at least didn't have the wherewithal to understand the importance of that. And again, it took 7.5 years, and instead of focusing on setting a forward-looking vision for hydro, they instead focused on legislating hydro rate increases. That's the record that they have, Mr. Chair. You know, our energy policy does, I think, sets a really remarkable course. And one of the things I think that really stands out, again, as I've spoken to here today, is that Indigenous partnership and the partnership with Métis in Manitoba to develop 600 megawatts of wind. And to facilitate that and support that investment, the policy commits to implementing a loan guarantee, an Indigenous loan guarantee, to support the ability of First Nations and Métis communities to be part of that incredible opportunity to do economic development, to have that power of self-determination, to focus on creating those opportunities within communities. It really is a remarkable partnership, and something that I know is being very well received in our conversations with First Nations and Métis communities. And I'm really excited when I see the Métis have already stood up a Wind Power Corp. Excited to see them moving on that opportunity, as well as other communities as well. You know, another thing that we highlight in that energy policy is faster hookups for homes. And we know that's something that we've heard loud and clear from Manitoba home builders. That's incredibly important to support their good work of developing new housing stock in Manitoba and ensuring that the costs of that new housing stock are as low as possible. And that's something that we were proud to commit to in that energy policy, understanding, again, the importance of that relationship between the energy policy and our overall economy, and within that, housing as one key sector within our economy. Of course, there were other really exciting announcements in that energy policy, whether it's EV charging or otherwise, but the policy is set to put us on a course towards growing this province in a way that it hasn't seen in many years. It does that in I think, a way that's financially incredibly responsible, and it's something that I think we can all be incredibly proud of, and I invite the critic to support that energy policy at every chance she has.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. And on behalf of my PC colleagues and former PC government, I'll say you're welcome to the minister that he was able to inherit the second lowest hydro rates in North America because the PCs kept hydro rates so low. I am curious with this new energy policy, what the impact of Hydro's new energy policy will be on net income of Manitoba Hydro and your future budgets. And, I'll ask another question as well, as I know we're running low on time. Still related to estimates in Manitoba Hydro, the minister has hired a new energy advisor on Manitoba Hydro within the Department of Finance. And if the minister can confirm the salary of the new energy advisor today, and that compensation from the Department of Finance is the only compensation that his energy advisor will be receiving from a government entity or crown entity.
the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. In response to the question that's been asked by the critic, or the questions, maybe good to just start by talking about, she's asking about the impacts of our energy policy and what that will mean ultimately for hydro. One of the main things it'll mean is that we will have actually confidence that we will have the energy we need to meet the energy needs that Manitobans have to again, power our homes and meet our needs every day. But it will also mean that we're going to have the energy we need to power businesses and new investments that wanted to come to Manitoba, but unfortunately, because of years of inaction and again, just a total focus on rate increases as opposed to setting a path forward for new energy and the development of new energy, we were unable to do to focus on things like economic development for years. But that's changed, of course, thanks to the leadership of our Premier and our team. And I'm really proud that energy policy spells out that path forward. In terms of the costs associated with developing that new energy, we've been very clear about the nature of that new energy development that's been committed through the policy, and that it will be delivered through partnerships with First Nations, who will be bearing the cost of those capital those capital investments. And so the costs associated with this, from a rate pressure perspective, there will of course be some costs for hydro, but ultimately the costs associated with the development of that wind will be borne by those partners. Of course, those are good investments that will allow them to get benefits for many years through a relationship with hydro and with our government, and will ultimately help us to move forward and ensure that we have the energy we need. In terms of the development of that policy and the importance of staff in supporting the development of that policy, one thing that I'm really proud of, Chair, is that policy was developed not perhaps as the former government would have developed a policy where they would have done something at exclusively at a cabinet table or with input from a small select number of people from within their team. We wanted to ensure that this policy was reflective of input from Manitoba Hydro, Efficiency Manitoba, energy experts internal to government. And one of the things that's just so incredibly exciting about this policy is that it reflects those inputs. It reflects a Team Manitoba approach, which we used to ensure that we brought forward a plan that, again, wasn't just reflective of the views of folks sitting in this building, but that was more broadly reflective of what Hydro understood as requirements for it to help us move forward in the right way, what Efficiency Manitoba recommended as an approach to moving forward. And so the policy is impressive in that it reflects, again, a broader approach where we're bringing in expertise across government from the key crowns that of course will need to deliver on that policy to ensure that we were moving forward together in a way that reflected the needs as identified by experts within government and our crowns. In terms of the other folks working to support this, the energy advisors and the energy advisor that supported myself in the development of this policy, again, it's important that we have talented, knowledgeable people in place to help us deliver in the development of policy like our energy policy. It's critical, in fact, that we have that expertise. And we're fortunate to have brought in my energy advisor, who brought that expertise throughout that process and continues to support us in moving this policy forward. That's critical to moving forward in the best way possible. We know for years, under the leadership of the last government, we lost a lot of experts. We lost a ton of talent within our civil service because they were feeling defeated, because they felt for years that they weren't supported or valued or recognized for the important work that they do. Things have changed, Mr. Chair. And we're proud to bring forward that change and to ultimately bring a new day for our civil service and the important people that support us throughout government.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, and I'll set the record straight again that the former PC government kept hydro rates low, the second lowest residential electricity rates in North America, and I'll table these documents for the minister so he is reminded of that. In the essence of time, I'll just be switching gears here. Looking at the Manitoba Ordering Council, can the minister please explain why he has 3 directors of ministerial affairs? Who do they report to? Do they report to the minister, or do they support other departments? And if the minister could define their roles and explain what those 3 individuals do.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. I am grateful for this opportunity to talk about the incredible support I have in my office. I'm very fortunate to have Paul Brescher serving as my Director of Ministerial Affairs. I can confirm for the critic that I only have one DOMA working for my office. Paul has been here since January, and I can say that his presence in our office has been unbelievably beneficial to the operations of the finance office. And one of the reasons I appreciate Paul and his work is because he always keeps the focus on where we need to be placing the focus, and that is on the best interests of Manitobans. And I know he gets up each and every day and comes to this building with that at the top of his mind. And I continue to be grateful to have his lengthy experience serving myself, serving our government. And it really is impressive to see the benefit of a seasoned professional like Paul and what can happen when you bring someone like that in. He has just transformed our processes and our day-to-day operations and finance, and I'm grateful to him for that really important work that he's done. We do know that, of course, under the PCs, they housed legislative directors, coordinators for ABC appointments, cabinet operations, all under finance during their tenure. Multiple positions with no direct relationship to finance. I can't comment much further in terms of how expansive that was, but we do know that they housed a lot of positions that were not directly finance related underneath the auspices of finance. So again, very proud of the work that's being done in our office and proud of the fact that that's being supported by an incredible DOMA, and looking forward to continuing to work alongside him as we serve Manitobans each and every single day here in this province.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you. And in looking at Manitoba's ordering councils, and I believe these have not been rescinded, we do have a Dane Mockman as Director of Ministerial Affairs that is under Minister of Finance. We have a Zachary Saltis that's also under Minister of Finance as Director of Ministerial Affairs, and then Paul Brescher as Director of Ministerial Affairs under Minister of Finance that the Minister has referred to. But I do, in the essence of time, just want to move on to another question. And I did allude to this last week, but we are looking at almost $1 billion increase in federal transfers, which is not only an increase from previous year forecast and from budget, but also a massive increase from forecasts as well. So we're halfway through the fiscal year now, and if I look at in the minister's budget documents from 23-24 to 24-25, year-over-year revenues are almost up $1 billion, $960 million or so. But in looking at a three-year projection, 25-26 projection up $790 million, 26-27 projection up $865 million, 27-28 projection up $874 million. So in looking at that, revenues will be up $2.5 billion plus the $1 billion from this year in federal revenue transfers. So if the forecast that he's using in his own budget end up being accurate, he's going to be taking in excess of $3.5 billion of revenue. So there should be no reason why this minister cannot return to balance with that increase in revenue coming from the federal government. So I just asked the minister from his perspective, does that sound accurate?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here today to be in this committee and to talk about good work happening in finance and hydro and otherwise. I just want to follow up on some of the comments made by the critic there previously. Zach Saltis was my prior DOMA prior to Paul coming in. So that's he's since moved on to other opportunities. And then the other individual is the DOMA in the Ministry of Indigenous Reconciliation. And that's an individual named Dane Monkman who's doing phenomenal work there in support of the Premier. MERS, the Ministry of Indigenous Reconciliation, as the critic likely knows, is housed in finance, and we're doing that because that helps to reduce overall overhead. So hopefully that provides the critic with clarity on those roles. Going to the question that was asked, which is about ultimately federal transfers and their impacts. It is good here, I think, for us to talk about the good work that our government is doing, the fiscal stewardship, the sustainable plan that we've put forward in our last budget, which spells out assumptions in the years ahead. And I think that this is a budget document that Manitobans can celebrate. We know that it essentially reiterates our commitment to that balanced budget in our final balance year at the end of our mandate. And we know how important that commitment is. That's something that knocking on a lot of doors this summer, I heard about over and over again, which was the importance of financial sustainability. Manitobans really wanted to see a government that was finally focused on ensuring that we developed a real plan to develop a plan focused on delivering a balanced budget, but that also balanced that commitment with the need to make investments in the things that Manitobans care about. And I think one of the wonderful things that changed on October 3rd was that finally they had that government. They had a government that was willing to do the work of doing rigorous planning, looking ahead, many years ahead, with a focus on delivering on that balanced budget commitment, and making the decisions that need to be made to deliver on that, while ensuring we balance that with responding to the need to invest in areas like healthcare, education, childcare, improving affordability, areas that for many years were attacked and saw cuts year over year over year that really set us back in a way that Manitobans felt every time they went to a clinic to get healthcare supports. They felt when they heard about a lack of proper supports for their children at school. They felt when they couldn't access childcare in their communities where they needed it, when they needed it. That's the record that we've been forced to contend with. That's a deep hole that they dug for Manitoba, and frankly, it was in its own right a giant sort of social deficit, if I could, that had been created by them because of how far we'd been set back. But again, fortunately, our Premier, our team is committed to doing the work of finding that balance between reinvesting in those areas, making real commitments to investing in education, supporting municipalities, investing in healthcare. Of course, our budget saw $1 billion increase to health. We did that while we ensured a focus on that long-term fiscal sustainability and with a commitment to balancing our budget in our final year. And that's something, again, that we know is critical. It's incredibly important that we prove to Manitobans that we meant what we said. I know when I go back to the doorsteps in a few years, I'm going to be having those conversations, and I'm excited to talk about the good work that we did to deliver on that commitment. Now, specifically, if the member is interested, she can tune to or look at page 92 of the budget document, the fiscal outlook summary there, which will spell out revenue assumptions for the years ahead.
The honourable member for Midland.
Well, it's a good thing that in my previous question I answered that for the minister already, that we're looking at $3.5 billion in Fed transfers over the next few years. But, you know, I've asked this of the minister numerous times. We have $1 billion and almost $1 billion in transfers coming this year. Interest rates are coming down. I've asked the minister to commit to showing an audited balanced budget in the 2026 public accounts. He has yet to provide me with a firm answer on that, so I'm going to give him another opportunity today. The S&P credit rating agency has said it's possible to show balance again as early as 2025, but so far the minister and the premier have shown commitment to running years of deficits and has no plans to return to balance in the meantime. But if S&P believes that it is possible to return to balance next year, can the minister today commit to at least showing an audited balance in the 2026 public accounts, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Again, as with the rest of today's conversation, it's great to have an opportunity to talk about these priorities of Manitobans, whether it's hydro or our commitment to fiscal sustainability. It is really wonderful to have this opportunity here in this House and especially in this beautiful chamber to talk about those commitments and the work that we're doing. You know, when we talk about fiscal sustainability, a big question here is the credibility that the last government has in talking about fiscal sustainability. And I've had many opportunities to talk at length about the MNP report, which was developed again after the last election, where we had them look at the various decisions that went into creating the fiscal disaster that was the deficit result from last fiscal. And this is not a product of NDP analysts in the basement of the ledge or political staff of any kind. This is the work of a highly respected independent accounting firm. And so this document is something that I think all Manitobans would benefit from reading. I know a lot have read this document, and when they review it, I know they share our concerns with the previous government's lack of transparency, their accountability on the decisions that they made or that they failed to make. And so, you know, when we're in here today talking about the perspectives of credit rating agencies, which we as a government have a deep appreciation and respect for, it's important that we at least talk about the reality of the mess that they left to us, and they left to all Manitobans, frankly, to clean up, which was, again, one of the biggest deficits in our province's history, a $2 billion deficit. that was driven by, again, poor planning, bad budgeting, any number of ways of putting it. But one of the, I think the worst parts of that year's fiscal performance isn't just that terrible result that we're all, being forced to deal with and the impacts of that, but it's just knowing that ultimately they sought to hide the direction of that deficit number from Manitobans prior to the election. I think that is deeply concerning to know that, even though Manitobans had every reason to expect that on July 28th, when they received that quarterly update, that they were getting accurate information in advance of an election, which they had, no reason to doubt at that point. It's difficult to learn that it was in fact a smoke show, and that there was a clear awareness that things were going to be billions of dollars worse than they had presented during that quarterly update. And that they knew that, and that they sought, even though they knew that things were going to be bad, that they sought to hide that, all with the desperate hope that they could stay in government. And we know that Manitobans were, after seeing the result, that even without the benefit of understanding the dismal fiscal performance that the last government had in the last fiscal and the direction of things, they still showed the last government the door. But I can't imagine how that would have been different if they knew the full picture of the reality of our financial situation. And the fact that, the numbers had been, that they'd been presented were not reflective of reality. So we continue to tell that story. I think it's important when the members opposite talk about financial sustainability, fiscal responsibility, the perspectives of credit rating agencies, that we remind them of what they left us. And again, that we have this document, and I invite the critic, I don't know if she's had a chance to review the MNP report, but it's helpful. It gives great insights into what not to do as a government. And again, this is the record explicitly of her former government that left us this mess that we need to clean up. And so, in terms of the perspectives of rating agencies, again, we're grateful to be continuing to develop trusting relationships with them, to do that important work of building confidence after that dismal result that Manitoba had on the scorecard due to their decision-making and their performance. We're going to continue to build strong relationships with S&P, DBRS, and others, and we're going to show through action and good planning that we're committed to that balanced budget target in our final year of our mandate.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. I do have many, many more questions, and I would appreciate that for the questions I have asked today that the minister didn't answer, that he would take those under advisement. But I do know that we have to close out today. So with that, I have no more questions, and we can move into resolutions.
Seeing no further questions, we will now turn to the resolutions, beginning with the second resolution, as we have deferred consideration of the first resolution containing the minister's salary. Resolution 7.2, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $2,096,000 for finance corporate services for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.3, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $2,518,000 for finance policy and research for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.4, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $8,694,000 for finance, communications, and engagement for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.5, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $2,497,000 for finance treasury for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.6, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $16,986,000 for finance taxation for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.7, resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $10,908,000 for Finance Treasury Board Secretariat for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.8, resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $1,738,000 for Finance, Community and Economic Development Secretariat for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.9, resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $3,023,000 for Finance, Intergovernmental Affairs for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.10, resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $10,906,000 for Finance, Manitoba Indigenous Reconciliation Secretariat for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 7.11, resolved that there be granted to His 7.11, resolved that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $706,384,000 for Finance, Other Reporting Entities Capital Investment for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. The last item to be considered for the estimates of this department is item 7.1 bracket A, the minister's salary contained in resolution 7.1. At this point, we ask that all ministerial and opposition staff leave the chamber for consideration of this last item. The floor is open for questions. Seeing no questions, I'll put the question to Resolution 7.1. Resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $8,263,000 for Finance, Administration, and Finance for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Yeah. This completes the estimates of the Department of Finance. The next set of estimates to be considered by this section of the Committee of Supply is tax credits. Shall we briefly recess to allow the First Minister and critics the opportunity to prepare for the commencement of the next department? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates for tax credits. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement? Does the official opposition critic have any opening comments? At this, no. The floor is now open for questions. Seeing no questions, I will put the question to the resolution. Resolution 33.1, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $176,800,000 for tax credits, fees, and other costs for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. This completes the estimates for tax credits. The next set of estimates to be considered by the section of the Committee of Supply is for enabling appropriations. Did we? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates for enabling appropriations. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement? Does the official opposition critic have any opening comments? In accordance with sub-rule 78(16), during the consideration of the floor is now open for questions. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the resolution. Resolution 26.1, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $791,179,000 for enabling appropriations, internal service adjustments, contingencies, and limited term funding for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 26.2, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $40 million for enabling appropriations, green and carbon reduction fund for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 26.3, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $20 million for enabling appropriations, capital assets, internal service adjustments, and contingencies for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 26.4, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $268,900,000 for enabling appropriations, other reporting entities, capital investment, internal service adjustments, contingencies, and limited term funding for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. This completes the estimates for enabling appropriations. The next set of estimates to be considered by the section of the Committee of Supply is for the Public Services Commission. Does the Honourable Minister have any opening statements? Does the official opposition critic have any opening comments? The floor is now open for questions. Seeing no questions, I will put the question to the resolution. 17.1, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $28,430,000 for Public Service Commission for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. This completes the estimates for the Public Service Commission. The next set of estimates to be considered by the section of the Committee of Supply is for employee pension and other costs. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement? Does the official opposition critic have any opening comments? Floor is open for questions. Seeing no questions, I will put the question to the resolution. Resolution 6.1, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $28,666,000 for employee pensions and other costs, for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. This also concludes our consideration of the estimates in this section of the Committee of Supply. This completes the estimates for employee pensions and other costs. This also includes our consideration of the estimates in the section of the Committee of Supply meeting in the Chamber. I would like to thank the Minister, critics, and all honourable members for their hard work and dedication during this process, as well as all the Assembly staff working tirelessly behind the scenes. We're good. Committee rise. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.